Hi everyone! Today is a very big day. It's the Herstory launch of Karina Tynan's book, Táin, The Women's Stories. And, it's funny, I normally don't get nervous before Herstory events, but I am today because I feel like this is a special day, that this is something seismic. It's something really spectacular for the women of Ireland. And to give an introduction to the woman herself, Karina, she's a woman of many talents. She's an author, she's a playwright, she's a psychotherapist. And her love of myth came from her participation in the Bard Summer School, which I've had the blessing to experience too. And she says this was a turning point in her life and in her creative career. And since then, Karina has been exploring mythology for over 25 years. And today she's created something truly extraordinary. She's rewritten back the women's perspective and she's taken on the mighty Irish epic, the Táin. It's from the Ulster cycle. It's a really famous, iconic story in Irish culture. And it's published by Bard Mythologies. The Bard was co-founded by the trailblazing duo Sandy Dunlop and Ellen O'Malley Dunlop, who will be joining us in conversation later. But first, I'd like to introduce Karina, the woman herself. Hi, Karina.
Hey, how are you? How are you, Melanie?
Congratulations. What a moment.
Or whoever else is here, hello.
Yeah. Congratulations. What a moment.
Yeah, here it is.
Here she is. Show us the book. Yeah. Beautiful. And tell me, it's a family affair.
It is. This beautiful book is illustrated by my daughter, Kathy Tynan. The book holds out flat like this. That image is representing Derdriu of the Sorrows. I won't show you the whole book right now, but I'll just show you one other. There's Macha. This is left and right. Macha. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. Absolutely beautiful. I'm really, really delighted with it. My daughter illustrated, and my niece is the graphic designer, who worked very hard on that on my website. It's been amazing collaboration. 3 women.
What a talented family. And all women too, collaborating together, and literary talent and visual arts,
Yeah. And we have a few nice boys in the family as well, but it just so happens this 3 of us were for this project anyway. Yeah.
And I have to tell you, last night I read the book before I went to bed, and it transported me into another world. I had the most amazing dreams. I was writing myths on the astral planes. The book, it's so powerful. It activates something deep within, like an aliveness I can't describe. So thank you. I can really see this being the spark for so many future creative productions, whether they're theatre or film or music. Because 50 years down the line, we'll still be celebrating the book. So thank you, Karina. It's really,
that'd be great.
Really wow.
We'll be gone.
I think you'll still be around.
You never know.
Yeah, and listen, I was reflecting before the event. I was reflecting on the myths from my childhood and the ones that stuck, the stories that we grew up with, I suppose, the books that we were given as children, and also the stories that were on the school curriculum. And the 3 women that I recall are Niamh of Tiernan, because she was very sweet and innocent, but non-threatening at all now to the patriarchy, And then there was Medb, the toxic feminine. What happens when you give women power? Dangerous idea. And then Aife, the evil stepmother in Children of Lear, which is still like this sticky stereotype that we hear today. And I thought, Jesus, where are the authentic inspirational role models and the really strong, complex characters for young girls today? And I always find it fascinating that the 3 great origin stories of Ireland, which I didn't know of before I joined the Bard Summer School, they are all goddess stories, and of course they're all hidden from the mainstream Irish culture, and they never get into the school textbooks. But that's why at Herstory, we felt so strongly that we had to include the mythic stories of women as core to our project, and we have all the stories of Bard's collection on the Herstory website for our readers to read, and your retellings too. And I suppose, Karina, my question then is, they are my experience as a child. What about you? What did you see in the myths?
Well, my biggest memory was the first thing I ever wrote, which was Aife from the Children of Lear. That was, it was told and I accepted it. That she was banished to the 4 winds because she was bad, and he had banished the Children of Lear, and then that you could still hear her wailing on a windy night in Ireland. And that was something I accepted and listened for. this awful, evil, dark woman. And so it wasn't until one of the Bard summer schools we'd spent time with the children of Lear that I realized I really needed to explore this archetype, I suppose, and give her her own voice, not to really vindicate her, just to explore her. And it sort of began to symbolize a banishment of the darker aspects of the feminine, that need the ground and need to be understood, I suppose. So that was my first passionate response to a myth. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you've made some very interesting observations on female power and what happens when it's repressed.
Yeah.
In the context of Aife, and how the darkness in our culture is banished. And it feels almost like this is a hangover from the conditioning of the Catholic Church. We don't even try to understand it. It's just banished underground. But there's great wisdom to be found in it, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every woman in any of the myths is worth exploring, and I think what comes out, or what feels like it comes out anyway, is sort of for me, in every one, there's an aspect of myself, and if there's an aspect of me, then it's an aspect of every woman. I find, I look to find something, and the myth then shows me what I need to find, is my belief. Yeah.
Beautiful observation, and great honesty as well. It's courage, I think, to allow the myth to hold up the mirror and to allow you to explore yourself.
Yeah, well, we had a great guest speaker for many years on the Bard Summer School called John Moriarty, and John used the phrase that a myth must be harrowed. It must be harrowed, and I think that's that if you really delve into a myth, it'll show you something about yourself.
That's beautiful. Yeah,
show you something about yourself. Yeah.
And isn't there something liberating as well, and just dropping the judgment and just creating a safe place to explore the complexity of the human experience. And evidently our ancestors were much more comfortable about the lightness and the darkness in humanity. But it's now happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think because theatre was, I remember going to Knossos in Greece, in Crete, and this goddess, this ruin of a whole place had been covered by a flood, and when it was excavated, it was discovered to be like that of a goddess culture. And what was bang in the middle of this incredible ancient ruin was a theatre. And so what's a theatre for? A theatre is kind of essential. It's like as if it's an essential part of community. And a myth's like that. I mean, what do the Greeks do? They make plays about the myths, what, yeah. So it's like,
and you're referring to the early Minoan culture, the early Greek culture in Crete.
Yeah.
And they were very advanced, enlightened civilization, and I think a glimpse into the potential of humanity when we allow equality to exist between the sexes. And I know I'm a big fan of Rian Eisler's work, the Trailblazing Academic, and she talks about the Minoan culture and how they weren't bothered making weapons or creating wars. They were too busy having enlightened sex and art, making art. That was their passion. And it's all there in the archaeological evidence. And you can see that in the theatre. And for me, that's the great blessings of myth, is that it transports back to a time in ancient culture. In prehistoric Europe, they were goddess worshipping people. All the evidence is archaeology. We need to remember that and to activate that again. And you're doing that through this work, it's big work. Yeah.
And Ariadne is wielding the snake as opposed to Mary with her foot on the snake. It's like
exactly. Yeah. And through that process as well, not to be afraid of the shadow. And I loved how you pulled me up on the word toxic, because it's become like almost a normal word we throw around, and there's a lot of talk about toxic masculinity. And I'm the only one in feminist events saying, wait a second here, we need to talk about the feminine shadow too, and toxic femininity. I honestly have experienced more toxic femininity running Herstory than toxic masculinity. And you said, no, but just we're all human. It's just shadow, And I think the word toxicity, it's sticky, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't like the word. It's shadow. It's just shadow, and we all have shadows, and we're all have darker impulses. And you know, again, I'll quote John: "Shadow is only shadow till you shine a light on it." You know.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, not to be afraid of it. And that's why we're here today, because there's just so much richness and depth and complexity. And when you delve into the world of shadow, and you know, it's just so fulfilling. Like, it really is. And like, sure, you tell from the dreams I had last night.
Well, there you go. I mean, it's like it enriches your life experience, because you know, we could just be worrying about money otherwise, you know, and who's going to get a degree or whatever it is. There's just so much more to living along with your imagination, you know.
This is it. And I love what you said about myths, that there's a room for everyone when it comes to myth, because myth can hold us all.
Yeah, that's right.
To really
and that's what the Bard does. I mean, I remember being really, the very first time I went to the Bard summer school, well, the first couple of summer schools were in the Pierce Museum in Not Clare Island. But I remember being in this big circle of people and feeling very shy. And I remember I said something, you know, and Ellen said, "Oh, that's really interesting that you think that." And I was there waiting for the response, was that I what I would say was either going to be wrong or right, you know. And it was just like a moment in time where, you know, whatever I thought was going to be relevant, it didn't matter. There was no wrong or right. Whatever was happening in me in relation to this myth was relevant and to be shared, you know. That was great. That was a real moment for me. Yeah.
And like you said, with the process, your creative process, that you have no answers, you only have questions. And the liberation that brings too.
Yeah. Because myths are bottomless. There's no finish, end, or anything. You know, I mean, it'll continue to teach. You know, that's why it was very hard to sort of let a book like that go, because you know, over the years I've been reading them on the summer school, and you know, every time I come to it, I know more for it, or I give more to it. You know, so it gets edited once more. So to actually let them go was interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'm delighted with it, but yeah, very interesting.
And tell us, why did you take on the famous epic, the Táin? Because it's quite an ambitious undertaking. It really is a bold statement. We're so grateful you did it. Wow, you know.
I didn't do it on purpose. I was literally writing along the way. Say the summer school's theme would have been Cesar, or another summer school's theme. We did Bridget one year, you know, different themes, and not always, you know, about goddesses, about all the pantheons, war, and you know, we did Diarmid and Grania, and you know, all sorts of wonderful things. But so I would write one for the summer school, you know, and then so they were collecting up, and then I kind of just realized I had only a few women. Actually, I met you one time, and you were pushing me to do something, and I ended up doing. You kind of sort of inspired me to write another one, you know. And then I realized I was only a couple of women off the Táin. You know, I realized that I'd nearly covered them all. I still had to do Finnebar, and I still had to do one aspect of Maeve, and that was that. I was like nearly there. Yeah.
Thank you. It's an extraordinary piece of work. And you're going to read one of the retellings for us today. Who have you chosen to read?
Yeah, I think I might read the first one, because it's the first one. It's not the first I wrote, but maybe just begin the story for people. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Will I go? Okay. So the first story the story that I'm reading today is a woman called Nassa. I'll just give it a little brief outline. She's the mother of King Conor MacNassa, the king of the Ullid, the king of Ulster, who was the king of Ulster. Nassa's life was changed irreparably through the losses of her father, King Uki Solbuida, her 12 foster fathers, and her lover and father to her child, who he was the High King Fáic na Fáitheamh. When her child was 7 years old, she married Fergus mac Riach, then king of the Ullid. She married him on one condition, that her child could be king for a year, so that his children would be the children of a king, along with any other she might have with him. He agreed, but after that the kingdom was so prosperous that Conor was preferred as king, and so Fergus abdicated. Nassa is also the mother of Dectna and Finucane, who were the mothers of the great warriors Cuchulainn and Conal Carnoch. It is worth noticing that her son, the king, had his mother's name, which might suggest her as a remnant from an older matriarchal order. So I will begin. I've called it Lither Rua, which means red letter. I presume you've heard of red letter days. Yeah. I am the rill that startled the sun as it sprung, the source of the river of provinces and promises betrayed. I won't tell it all. Others can do that. Only my part. That it would never have happened if it wasn't for me, Asa of the Ullid, mother of a king who battled for the ground under his feet. As well as that, I am the grandmother of heroes that are chiseled into the depth of our souls. I'm fulfilled by my doings, but nothing much is said of me. When war becomes the story, the rest lies under a layer of dust. I am Princess Asa, the easy, gentle daughter of King Aki Salbuda, a good king who ruled for a time in peace. But often a crop will fail, or someone will want a piece of land, even a crown. Sometimes it is a druid with a prophecy, pointing a story a world apart from the way it would have gone if left alone. The making of such a story is seductive. Peace can be boring for the well-fed with time on their hands. I had 12 foster fathers, 12 clans loyal to my father's crown. That might have caused suspicion as to whether they loved me or humoured me, but I had reason to trust their affections. I had a foster father to enhance every skill. One taught me to fight with a sword, another to ride, cast a javelin, jump the height of a horse. I learned to tend animals, to fish, forge with fire, climb a mountain, a tree, swim with the creatures of the lake, to sing and dance. I had them all in my pocket, and I could see how much they loved to teach a grateful novice. Easy and gentle is the meaning of my name, and that was true of me when I felt safe inside my father's kingdom. I thought I would feel safe outside too, because I knew what it took to find the soft spot in a man and thrust my sword into it if a reason arose, and it did. My foster fathers, all 12, were attacked and killed by the always lurking Fianna. Why? Because of me. I know that because Cathba rode with them. He was like all interfering druids who lie in their wattles with their chants and their moans, with their eyes rolling back in their heads. They have meetings with death, or so they say. After they come back to the world supposed to be wise and able to tell everyone what to do. Predictions that are supposed to prevent terrible things from happening. But maybe their big oracle gobs are the cause of what happens instead of the cure. Cathba spoiled our peace by killing 12 men whose deaths would lead the way to my father, so he would be aroused into fighting. I went after them for vengeance. I brought with me a band of 27, all able for wrestling and killing, fast in our own minds as any warrior of the forest. I brought nothing of my gentleness nor my kindness along. That day I brought my rage and a new name. I was Niassa, not so gentle, not so kind. This is what I said to rouse them. The Féin are a dying breed still living on old reputations, half sick and dying. They will be easy to kill. They will have our revenge. We will have our revenge. I didn't know how wrong I was when my band roared away, killing all the masters of the forest in their mines. We did not find one of them, but we couldn't give up. We stayed out long after a hard day, camped under a jutting cliff for shelter. Under it I found a little glade, green and silent. I removed my clothes to wash under a trickling of water. As I was washing my hair, I saw 2 worms coiling up together in a little pool below me. Just as I did, he came up behind me. My body tightened with fright. He was saying things about me and my beauty, and what was I doing there, and why was I putting myself in such danger? What do you think, girl? He said. that you and a band of 27 men can contend with the men of the forest? I blushed with a little shame. All you should be is for loving, he said. It was Cathba who'd been riding with the Fianna, telling me to go back, to stop putting myself in danger. This is no day for revenge, he said. What is it a day for? I said. This is a day to conceive a king. I could have called out, but he had intrigued me with the idea of a king inside me. I had told myself I didn't believe in druids, but I knew their prophecies could be enticing. I was tempted. I thought a king in my womb might prove to be a better revenge. So I gave in to my doubt. I would wait. He came to me, knowing he was my first, and he was gentle enough, making out all the time it was for a greater purpose, how important my child was going to be. It is an imperative act for king-making, he said, and didn't I give the same favour to your mother in the making of you? But she bore no king, I said. No, he said, she bore you, and you will bear a king. I knew how it was that kings were not to be conceived merely by a roll in the hay. There's always a godfather for the purpose of specialness. Cathba saw himself as the godfather of my child. I wasn't sure if I'd been fooled. Had he really given me the seed for a king? I went home, and it wasn't long before I found the man I would like to marry. He was Fáic Fáic, no less than the High King of Ireland, who had come to do business with my father. He was handsome and tall, with a broad chest. His teeth were white and his cheeks were pink. His hair was long and black and braided with strings of gold. His colours were green as the fields of Tara, the seat of all the High Kings of Ireland. 'Twas clear he had been raised on the best of meat and milk and grain. He was the right father for a boy who would be king. One day, while Faulkner was enjoying his time with me, a letter came from him that was covered in blood. The letter told him that Aife of Connacht had marched into his land. So it was that he and my father's army marched off to meet the terrible Ucky in battle. I never saw my father again. I never saw Faulkner again. I was robbed of a father and a grandfather for my child. I was robbed of the privilege and status that was to be my future. I should have been the High Queen of Ireland. I should have been the most formidable queen of this story, and not that Maeve of Connacht whose father, Aife, had marched on Tara that day that was named Derdriu for all the blood that was spilt. It is terrible when a story takes on like that, especially when a child is getting ready to come into the world. My son was born on the auspicious first morning of Lunasa, only the day before I had gathered the last of the Freacon. Little black berries, both bitter and sweet, were the last nourishment he would receive from my body before his birth. I was alone when my waters were released. I fell to my knees, screamed for the women to come. They came and took me with soft words of comfort, good women, all used to hiding their fears, for only too often had they seen a mother die. They cried with me, held me, knowing I would not give my son into his father's arms, never see his eyes fill with tears of joy. I laboured with heartbreak and agony for too long a time, but in the end, my rage pushed him out. My life force was strong, and I knew the tasks ahead of me were many. It was afterwards, when I put my son to my breast, that druids and all their claims came to my mind, their meetings with death. Were they really coming from the gods? Always it seemed that after one of their famous excursions there was something to govern. It was in that moment that I saw giving birth as good and better than the traversing of any druid. My child had awakened the shining truth, forgotten all too often. That love is the gift. I came back from my near-death excursion in love and grateful for my life. I called him Conor MacNessa, he for whom I would give my life. My desire for Cathba's prophecy to come true was getting stronger by the day, along with a burning rage for my predicament. Had I fallen for a prophecy? I wondered who does not. Since my father was dead and a new king of the Ullad was crowned, Fergus MacRae king for his reputation as a stallion of a man with an appetite to match. He went about the world as king should, doing and being all the right things, but the word under the ground was he was impossible to say it. That was both frightening and exciting to me. I watched over my child, knowing full well Fergus was considering me to be his queen. I worried about that. I thought, if I marry Fergus, it would be the sons I had with him that would become kings. I had no love for any child not yet conceived. All of that loyalty and love was for my own son, Conor, child of the once princess of the Ulster, child of High King, godson of a druid. I kept my eyes averted to create a mystery around myself. I kept my cheeks pink and my hair jewelled regally as a queen's would be, until Fergus asked me to marry him. Fergus MacRaich, big horse of a man, handsome as he was huge, the great leader and king of the Ulster, was to marry the daughter of the great dead king Uki Solbuda. It was heralded to all. It was a great union, and it was true what was said of his prowess in the bed. The truth was he would only ever be sated by queens, but I was not the only queen who would lie with him. That story would be for the bitch herself to tell, the one who was the image of her father, Uki Féach, marching and stealing and wagging her hips all her life. But I didn't know any of that yet. All I knew was how to protect my son, and this is how I did that. You know, Fergus, I said, I worry about Conor. I'm very sure if we marry, I will have more sons to succeed you. Then my poor child will be cast aside. So if he could be king for just 1 year now, when he's only a 7-year-old and no harm to anyone, then his children could say they are the children of a king. When the year is up, you take your rule back. After that, I will grow plenty of sons for you, my darling. He agreed. It was a stupid thing for him to do because it was I who did all the reigning during that year, and I had such great experience from my foster fathers. And so it was at the end of that year, the kingdom was so wealthy and well that our people wanted things to remain the same. Why wouldn't they? I said. Sure, isn't everything in such good order that it would be a pity to interfere with it? And so my husband gave in to the pressure he was under to abdicate. I bore 2 girls after that, Dectana, whose son was Cuchulainn, the greatest warrior that ever lived. My other daughter, Finchoim, married Amergan MacEcht. The poor girl was barren for a long time until I told her to drink from the same pool as the one where I lay with Cuthba. There she saw the same 2 worms that I did, and after 9 months she gave birth to the great hero, Conal Carnock. Those 2 cousins were great friends, loyal to each other until the end. And my son, Conor MacNassa, became the king he was born to be. Yes, it was I, the rill that startled the sun as it sprung, who began it.
Wow, Karina, I'm speechless. Spectacular. So rich. And I love you peppered it with great nuggets of wisdom as well. I love that line, how peace can be boring for the well-fed with time hands.
Well,
One
yeah.
many, yeah.
Well, it's the beginning, and it's like, Mike Knock. Yeah, it's the beginning. She gave birth to a king. That's that.
And we never heard of her growing up. Never heard of Nassa.
Never heard a thing. No.
Yeah, it's so important what you're doing. Amazing.
Yeah.
So we're going to invite Kathy, your daughter, now to join the conversation because I know you've been collaborating together. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Congratulations on this incredible mother-daughter collaboration. What a stunning book that you've created together. It's really amazing.
Thank you, and well done, Mum. That reading was amazing. Very powerful.
Thanks.
You're a great team, aren't you? Yeah.
Cara, yeah, it was very easy. Yeah, well, it was very easy for me anyway. Just say, will you read this and draw something, and that was what she did. And she's
it's nice and straightforward in that way. Yeah.
But the myths aren't straightforward at all, huh? They're complex, Kathy, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose Mum would have been looking for either 1 or 2 images, after I'd read each myth, and that would usually come pretty easily. That I'd have a sort of a preference to draw something particular that kind of stuck in my mind. In that one, it was the 2 worms and then an image of the mother and child. They were sort of just, jumped out at me. Yeah.
The two worms, yeah, it stuck with me as well, actually. It's a really strong image, isn't it? Really peculiar. Great. Great little motif to work with. Yeah. And Kathy, tell me, like, how many of these women had you heard of before working with your mum?
Just the same as yourself, the same as any of us, you know, we'd heard of the evil Queen Maeve and evil Aife, and, you know, that's about it. So, and I have been hearing my mum's retellings over the years, but I mean, that was like hearing it all for the first time there. You know, it is kind of they're you get more and more from them every time you hear them. So that was great.
Yeah, I bet. And I can imagine growing up with a mum like Karina and to be sharing the stories with you and the myths and to have that influence, these, you know, competing against celebrity culture. You've got these badass Irish heroines from Irish mythology. Must have been an amazing experience.
But I didn't. We just read books when they were small. You know, I wasn't sort of there yet myself.
Oh, you weren't there yet, only later on then? Yeah.
No. I mean, like, we were always very much into storytelling, but Kathy's dad was the one who did the oral storytelling, I think. Yeah.
Wow, there you go. And Queen Maeve in particular, she's a fascinating character, isn't she? She's so complex and gritty, and she's had a terrible reputation through the years too. I love what you said about her, Karina. You know, that you said that the word manipulative woman is now a quality to be admired and not the skill of an evil witch.
Well, as Ellen would say, it's strategy. You know, it's like it's called manipulation for women, but yeah.
And that being manipulative can be a positive thing, which I thought was like, I've never heard it spun in that light before. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, she used her when I was a child. Mum was driving me home from school or something, and she channeled her when she was overtaking someone on the road that was giving her chip. She shouted "Queen Maeve" into the traffic.
I never heard the end of it. I've never heard the end of it.
It's live now on record on Herstory's YouTube channel forevermore. I cannot delete this moment in time. Well done, Kathy. That's the force of Aife. There's no putting her in a box. And she's unusual because she's a woman who started a war. That never really happens in history or mythology. Yeah, she's a formidable character. But maybe she's a goddess, like you said, you know. You know, always a price.
Yeah. And I mean, it sort of assumed that she was always motivated by greed, but if you read this, and it's written in some of the literature as well, it wasn't only greed. She was kind of angry because she'd been messed with.
And you know, it's funny you say that, because it always grated with me this idea that she was seethingly jealous. If you're that revered, that powerful, would you really be like lying in bed, like you said, it was pillow talk with her husband? They were just having some pillow talk. Would you really be seethingly jealous over? Well, maybe she just wanted to be equal.
She wanted a man who wasn't jealous. That was really important to me. Yeah, that the man would not be jealous, so she could do what she liked.
Very smart. Yeah. I love what you said about her, that she goes beyond equality, that she defies all identities given her. Wow.
Yeah.
Equal to herself before being equal to anyone else.
That's right.
What a woman. Yeah.
That's our Maeve.
That's our Maeve. And Kathy, tell us, are you going to be joining the Bard summer school next summer? I hope you're going to join us.
I haven't done it yet. I think my son is going to be 2 by next summer, so I might. Yeah, it'd be nice for him to be able to be that bit older to join the children's Bard. He'd love that. I think I've been to Clare Island, but I haven't actually been on the summer school. Yeah.
Oh wow, it's quite an experience. Yeah, it's really powerful, really profound. So super.
Yeah,
well, thanks, Neil. Huh?
The children's Bard's another family affair run by has been run by Grace, Ellen's niece, and it's also been run by Emma from Bard Mythologies. Yeah, great, really good.
And I find that fascinating. Actually, I think it was 2 years ago we were processing through the Táin, and all the adult bard, the grown-up bard, and all of our intellects and our fine education, we were completely drowning in the grief and the toxicity of war. And I thought it was fascinating. On the third day, we went to watch the children's bard. And then young children, because they don't have all the layers and layers of conditioning that adults have, so they just cut through all the nonsense that we were getting lost in. And they just cut through the point. And little fella then, he just sort of said, well, that was all for nothing. Well, thank you. The wit and ingenuity of young people, that they could see, you know, they could cut through all the layers and layers and just these grown up fast. But we let the young people run the country. It's a great idea, huh? Hard, really. It's like you get these insights and this, you know, this way, perspectives of seeing things that you'd never get anywhere else. Like, it's really a profound experience. So on that note, I'm going to invite Ellen and Sandy, co-founders of the Bard, to join the conversation. Thank you, Kathy. We'll chat to you soon. Hello.
No. Hi, we're
there we go. Hi, Sandy and Ellen, how are you?
Hi, Ellen.
Hi, Karina. Hi, Melanie.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, a huge congratulations to Karina for what is absolutely a body of work. It is a body of work that's evolved and emerged over more than a decade, really. And all I can say is that right from the first time Karina ever read, she completely entranced every one of the participants. So she completely engaged everyone with her telling. So she's a fabulous oral storyteller that I think anyone that's just listened to her Nassa would stand by. So it's a fabulous moment to have this and this collaboration with your wonderful daughter. Can
I just come in there, because I think that I've seen Karina over the years grow into this, because when Sandy says that she certainly intrigued everybody on the summer school with her tellings, but Karina, her telling, when she read initially at the very beginning, she was very quiet. She spoke very quietly and wasn't quite sure. And to see that confidence grow it's just been like, it's been a real privilege, Karina. And we're so proud of you. And it's brilliant.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Sandy. Yeah.
And I remember my first encounter with Karina too. I was actually it was my first ever Bard summer school, and Karina arrived, and the first day she gave this spellbinding performance, and then she just disappeared. She announced that she had to leave and go back to Dublin. I thought, how could she do that? How could she just drop a bomb like that and then disappear? Because I wanted to sit beside her every night at dinner and talk to her. I was fascinated by this character who would take on, to be so brave to reclaim the women's stories and to write with such gusto and courage. Like, it's brave, bold work. But when I experienced it, that was 3 years ago now, and she was formidable. She really was, you know. There's some big characters in the Bard, you know. It's quite an experience.
And I think that when you look at the Táin, how it was recovered, I suppose, by Thomas Kinsella, first of all, and then the illustrations by Louis Le Brocquet, and subsequently Louis Le Brocquet and his son worked together to develop the wonderful tapestries. And I mean, I really think that this is closing the circle now with Karina and Kathy's work, you know, that here we have, I mean, it was one-sided, and Thomas Kinsella, to give him his due in his introduction to the Táin.
There he is on the wall.
He said that it is certainly, it may be goddess figures, but ultimately that these women have their power. It is certainly they, under all the violence, who remain most real in the memory. So what Karina and Kathy have done is they have brought the women now to us, And I mean, think that is wonderful. And I think Kathy's drawing at the beginning of the two worms just illustrates that it's not a circle, but it is, as Karina said, it's the love in the Nassa story. That's at the end of the day, that is what matters.
It's the worms.
Oh, beautiful. Oh,
Yeah.
it's clever. Wow. There you go.
One of the common characteristics of right from the beginning of Karina's tellings is that the myth, as you understand it, before the Karina telling is not the same as the myth after. So it's almost as if there's a BK and an AK. And in a way, before Karina, for example, the children of Lear, Aife comes across as a cruel and spiteful and jealous woman. And I think Karina completely reframed that. And you started to understand what it might be like as a woman who's got married and the father's in a bed with the children, as he was in the children of Lear. So it just gives a completely different framing. And I think the remarkable thing, we've just done an 8-week series with Bard Mythologies on the Táin with Karina's telling. Excuse me. And in a way, she completely inverted the traditional affections where Cuchulainn comes out as a romantic hero and Maeve comes out as this, as Karina calls her, a bitch. And I have to say that for anyone who does embark on this wonderful book, you will find that your Táin is turned completely upside down. And even terms like manipulation have a completely different meaning. Even promiscuity has a completely different meaning with the wonderful Maeve figure. So there's actually also, if I could mention it, a final chapter, Karina, which you have added, which is your reflections on Maeve, having worked with her for 10 years. And I'm not going to do a spoiler, but I think you've left us, you call it Maeve's Epiphany. And I think it's a really intriguing thought that you've left us with at the end. And I wonder whether in time, because myths aren't authored, as Rose Jacobs said, they're collectively, there's a sort of collective sanction to say, yeah, this is part of the mythology. But I somehow think that maybe your powerful ending might actually be sanctioned in time as part of the mythology and the folklore, because it's a really interesting place, having taken us through these extraordinary women with everything from competitiveness and jealousy and anger, and your treatment of love is extraordinary and tender.
And I think that piece is really important, Sandy, that, where Cuthbert says all you should be for is loving, but it was a very put down, sentence, really. And what you've done is you've delved into it. You went to the real depth of it and shown us, that love is the gift.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because one of the things also that in the oral tellings that we've had both on the summer school and on Zoom, the group struggled through after 2 months to that place that the kid got to much more quickly, which is, what is the point of this tragic bloody story? It just ends up. Why is this hero, this warrior, this killing machine who kills his best friend and kills his son? What's the point of it all? And I think, in a way, the answer, perhaps the answer is these extraordinary women, both in their, having to cope with the fact that they are, in many ways, in a situation that you described as limited, that the culture limits their options, and yet you brilliantly portray what the options are for women when they're limited.
And I think it's not just for women also, and this is where I think the myths are so fantastic, because it's archetypal energy. So it's the archetype of the feminine, and while it speaks to us women and gives us permission to actually embrace all the different aspects, whether that be the shadow, which of course is the most, the first step is to embracing the shadow, but it's also a realm that is there for men to explore, because it is the archetypal energy of the feminine, and that is not just our territory as women, but it's also territory of men, and it moves away from, I think, also that binary men-women thing.
Absolutely.
Because there are people who feel other than just being a man or a woman, and I think this is the real beauty of the mythology. It allows us to go to those other places.
One of the places that I think the group will end up, and I think readers will, is just how you can be trapped in a mythology. And the ultimate irony around Cuchulainn is, here's a man who apparently has extraordinary power, and yet in your tellings and in listening to it, you're left feeling he doesn't actually have any agency at all. He's actually powerless, and I think that turns it from being a romance into a tragedy. I think where your book leaves us, Karina, both in the brilliant exploration of the female characters, but even in your last chapter, is you don't have to be stuck in a mythology. You can break out of the matrix that traps you in it. And I think in terms of the warrior mythology, and that extreme competitiveness that actually is a part of Skahak and Aife's portrayal that you brilliantly portray in that story. You can, if you're aware of the myth, break out of the myth, so that the myth doesn't have you, you have the myth, or you at least have some choices around it. And I think that's why your book is such an important and extraordinary
beginning, Karina.
Beginning. It's funny. I'm reminded. I don't hope this isn't too off course, but I'm reminded very strongly of a book that Kathy has for her little boy Frank, and it's about a man in Aleppo, war-torn Aleppo, who has lost so much, and but to try and be useful, what he does is he tries to save the cats that are on the streets, and he sets up a sanctuary for cats, and now not just cats but animals, other animals. And it's like that's I suppose I wanted to say it because it holds that it's a man captured by a war who's able to explore, I suppose, what that's feminine energy, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that book, I'm reminded when you say that of a paragon, Conor, it's Conor O'Cleary's book, about that same energy is there in that book. It's amazing, but to have it there for a child, it's
beautiful.
And I hope that we'll see the Táin on the school curriculum, on the English curriculum in the future, and I can see that day happening. Could you imagine the influence that this book would have on young girls today? Be just wow. I mean, I wish I had this book as a teenager. It would be such a liberation. It is. Like you said about I love that insight around, you know, to have the myth, not to let it have you. And the same that goes with the archetypes, and how, for me, my experience of being on the Bard with Karina and with Sandy and Ellen has been such a gift, in that it's challenged my way of thinking and how I run Herstory. And I'll never forget that day, Sandy, you left us with that cliffhanger. We just processed through the Táin. We would gone through the throes of hell, and then you just left this huge question on the table. You said, well, if in the 1916 Rising, our leaders, they needed to call on the force of Cuchulainn, the archetype of Cuchulainn, that's who we needed in that time. Who is the new masculine today?
Yeah.
And then we all headed up, we all left Clare Island, and that question stayed. It still sticks with me today, you know, and I think that's the power of myth. And the work that you're doing is so important in the Bard for that reason, is because it creates a space for us to have these big questions, to challenge society and the way we think and the way we see things. It's to think the wisdom that's in the past. Like we live in an age of information, but there's a poverty of wisdom. We're suffering from that big time in the West and in Ireland too. I think that's the gift of the Bard, and what you've created, Karina, is it's the wisdom through spellbinding storytelling. It's just.
But it also has. I think
Perigon is by Colin McCann, not Conor O'Cleary.
Okay.
I just wanted to correct that.
No,
sorry.
I think one of the things I remember reading, I think it's in Bulfinch's Mythology. I'm not sure. It's a Greek book anyway. But I think it's Joseph Campbell who said, "Myth makes you happy." It makes you happy. That's my experience. It makes me happy, and I think maybe because that's maybe my creativity, where my creativity lies. But I think, you know, creativity makes you happy when you're connected, I suppose, to whatever it is that's particularly you know. And I think that
I describe it slightly differently from just 25 years of running, that people, even if they've been listening to a bloody story of that's quite gruesome, of gay bulgars tearing Ferdia apart and that kind of thing, they always seem to leave uplifted. And it's hard to explain. How could you be dealing with all this bloodshed and yet come away uplifted?
I think the other thing that happens on, you know, when we're working, and as Karina says, as John Moriarty says, we're harrowing the Bard, there's also a huge amount of laughter.
Oh, loads.
And crack is mighty.
So much. Yeah.
And we better explain crack, Melanie, for anybody in who doesn't understand what Irish crack is having fun.
It's not so
fun. That's Gaeilge, our native tongue. Yeah, it is the crack. I've been there. I've experienced it, and it is mighty. And there is a lot of laughter and huge energy. Like, it's incredibly cathartic process. I leave feeling more alive. Like, it activates parts in you that you didn't know existed. And you leave with like this depth of understanding. It's amazing. It's such a liberating experience. Yeah.
Going to an island too, like going to Clare Island, like leaving the mainland, crossing the water, you know, having to leave your car behind, or and a lot of your, you know, the things that you might think are important, coming to an island too. And when you step onto that island, I mean, I used to think I felt the power of that land because my grandfather was from Clare Island. But when I hear other people talking about having the same experience, it's just like holy ground. And it has a power that the landscape there, it's just, it's like we're still connected to the landscape. You feel connected to the landscape there in a way, I think, like the Aboriginals talk about, you know, they don't talk about owning, it's their country. And there's something about, you know, it's our country, you know, that we're still connected at many levels.
And looking at Croagh every single day on the mainland in a different dress, basically.
And the mystical, magical light, and having to walk past Grania Wales Castle every morning as well.
And of course the people on the island. The people on the island, well, they think we're half mad sometimes.
We are. We're good mad.
They do, yeah, they do.
But they do love, you know, they do love the coming on, and they're so generous, and it's wonderful that you can stay in, you know, the islanders' homes and the B&Bs and get to know them. So there's a whole lot of layers, and as you know, we have the evening where the islanders sing their songs, do their dances, and tell their stories, and that's all part of that full experience. Yeah, we are blessed really to be able to go there and harrow in a beautiful place with lovely people.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is another theme that I think is inherent in what Karina's work is, and it goes to a book that the famous classicist Mary Beard wrote called Women and Power. Oh, yeah. And I think that in one way we're given, you know, a style of power that's quite hierarchical and often built on fear. And I think one of the things that female power is often described as is manipulative. And I think that word has a completely different meaning with Karina, because she's really taken it and say it isn't manipulation. It's expressing power in a way when you're in a world that limits the options. What Mary Beard also says is we have to reimagine power, reinstate women within the context, the current context. We need to reimagine what power is about. And I think one of the takeouts of the book is here are a range, a wonderful range of options as articulated in these extraordinary characters that Karina's brilliantly brought to life. And we're carrying on that discussion next year. We're planning a series called Women and Power, which picks up the rest of Karina's writings on many of the other figures. And so that'll be in the new year. And hopefully there might be another book, which is the further 10.
He has me on book 3 already.
Yeah, book 3. Yeah, another book.
I think I need a rest now. So for a while.
Well, we haven't yet had a big celebration.
I
made like feast where we can all meet and have a lost Friday afternoon and talk a load of nonsense and drink a bit of mead.
Yeah, absolutely. That's common. It's worthy of a classic Irish feast.
Countess Markovitch started collecting the Irish stories, and then and only, you know, they were only available to a small number of people, as you know, our new state had to do other things. But I think you're coming into your own now with I think you're stepping into the Countess Markovitch energy, and yourself and Melanie, and there'll be no stopping you. I've no doubt about it.
Oh, and you too, Helen. Look, we're the triple goddess together with the support of Sandy, you know, and Kathy. It's a team, it is, and there's been a lot of magical weaving behind the scenes. Perfect storms had to be sparked, you know, but it's been amazing. I think a real indication about, you know, the importance of Karina's work, that it's been retweeted by the Abbey Theatre, Cartoon Saloon, the National Women's Council of Ireland. Like, it's the spotlight is on your work, you know, and the Irish Central have shared your story with the diaspora worldwide. And I can see this being on the curriculum, and I can see it being transformed into theatre and films, you know, for years to come. And you don't know what you've sparked. You never know. It's like you just drop.
Yeah. And for anybody who's listening, there's a great play. Aife is now a play.
There you go. See?
There you go.
Yeah, it's a special moment, and I'm really looking forward to celebrating with you all in person when we have our big epic face. Hopefully, we'll definitely get the summer school next year, but before that too.
Yeah, hopefully.
Big face. What you said, Karina, theatre is an essential part of a community, and I think that is so pertinent.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And where, I mean, we have it, you know, there's one in Dunleary, there's one in Tala, there's in every school. There should be some little space in every school. It's so important.
Well,
for children at the moment, with the pandemic and all of that, I couldn't think of a better answer to their distresses at the moment, you know.
Well, I also think that there's a huge role for oral storytelling, and I think one of the things that Zoom has enabled is we've been able to listen to you, Karina, all around the world in a Zoom context, and there's kind of an intimacy to that, because it's like there's me looking at Karina in my sitting room telling the story.
I'm on a call. It's really important. I can't talk. Sorry.
Okay, I know Melanie, somebody has interfered there with Melanie.
Yeah.
Okay, Melanie, yeah.
Super. Fantastic. So for all of our listeners here today, where can they buy the book, Karina?
Well, at the moment, it's on my website. There's a shop on my website, or I set up a shop, and it's KarinaTynan.com, Karina with a K, Tynan.com. There's also some copies in the Dublin, the Temple Bar Gallery for the Dublin Art Book Fair. And there's going to be another couple of venues in Dublin, places in Dublin, hopefully art galleries, helped on by Kathy, and then a couple of bookshops in Kilkenny. That's as far as I've gotten so far.
I'm hoping the Rathfarnham bookshop here in Dublin will.
Great. Okay. So if you can get it in a bookshop, you know, you don't have to pay for postage, which is better. And at the moment, I think there's been 2 out of many who've struggled with the website. I've got to just sort that out, and I will on Monday. But it's only been 2 people so far. I think that might not be about the website, but I have to check it and see.
Super. It's the most amazing Christmas present. I'd be delighted to receive it. Yeah.
Well, you will. Or your mammy will. Okay.
And Sandy, tell us now, when are the dates for the new Woman in Power series? The Bard series.
The 3rd Saturday in January, and it'll be in the similar format to what we did with Karina's recent Torn with Karina's tellings. Only we'll be picking up the rest of her tellings, and that starts this Saturday, probably 4:30 to 6:30. And the Bard team will tell the story, and then Karina will tell the story. And but the overall heading would be Women and Power, picking up on Mary Beard's proposal that power needs to be reimagined. And I think there was signs right through this book about the recovery of the goddess world seems to be peeping in, and that's something Kinsella also hinted at. What was that these women can be understood as goddesses, and I think so.
And all the information is on www.bardmythologies.com. And I think that we also will be supporting, Melanie, your big push on making sure that the 1st of February becomes our another national holiday, Imbolg, or Bridget's Day. So that would be fantastic. So we'll be on that day.
Big congratulations to you, Melanie. I understand that it's a decision made, isn't it?
It is actually. They announced just this week. I just thought the timing was amazing, because it's very important to highlight the fact that Bridget was indeed an Ulster goddess. She's a Leinster saint and an Ulster goddess. So at the same time that Karina is launching her book about the Ulster cycle, our government announced that 2023 will be the first year when Bridget's Day is our new official national holiday. It's done.
2023, because
and the reason is because it's too sensitive with COVID at the moment. And I agree with them. So we've got lots of time to plan some mischief for 2023, and it's going to be really amazing. So thanks for all your support, because
And
Trojan.
congratulations, Melanie. You've put loads of work into that. It's terrific. And you've been putting it in way before there was talk about bank holidays. You were on to let's make Bridget a bank holiday for.
Oh, we were planting seeds 2 years ago. But to the team, in fairness now, I think it's a 20-year campaign. If you look to the Green Party and beyond, it's been a Trojan effort all around. But
highlighting contests and highlighting Bridget is so important. And 2023 is going to be a special year because I hope we'll be all out of this lockdown feeling that we all have, and all the O'Malleys will be coming from all over the world to celebrate Grace O'Malley on Clare Island as well. So there'll be a lot happening.
Yeah. And Melanie, we met a senior TD in the government there recently, and there he was quoting all your stuff on pagan goddesses, and Bridget was a pagan goddess and a saint.
Out of curiosity.
He was from a Midland county that Ellen's associated
Charlie Flanagan
with.
Himself.
Well.
Yeah, well, I heard our Taoiseach also mention and using the term imbolg, which is fantastic that we're getting, that important language. We're recovering it and owning it. And it's wonderful. The old Celtic calendar, of course, it's brilliant.
No, it's really, and it was worth the effort. I sat down in March earlier this year in the depths of what should be spring, but Jesus, it was miserable. On the equinox, I personally wrote to every single politician in the country. Well, I didn't know there was that many politicians. It was quite an effort, but it was worth it because it was on their radar then. And I thought it was very important to reclaim the Celtic calendar and our Indigenous culture and that remembrance of what we've come from, and that inherent, the depth of the wisdom that's there. And the 1916 rising leaders, John Moriarty, John O'Donoghue, the Bard, you all understand why these stories are important, why this wisdom is important. And it's so relevant, it's so contemporary, and we need to remember. And we were, I thought Flanagan made a great point about Bridget and how she could be the icon for the eco movement, because we were people who worshipped the land. We adored nature. We had reverence and respect for it. And we need to remember that. It's who we are.
Yeah.
And lots of our women politicians are really supportive of it as well. And I think it's really important for us to do that. But Karina's book is giving us something that is so important, because it's there. And we now have it in print. It's not, we're not just talking about it. And I think that's, that's so important. And we owe a great debt of gratitude to our monks who wrote down our stories. And the oral tradition is like, it's so rich and it enables us to move on with the stories. But unless they're written down, they can be forgotten as well. So Karina's tellings are, reflective of our time. And that's really important that we have that, that we have this book at this time. So thanks, Karina.
Thank you.
Mary Beard talks about mute men and mute women and brutal men. Now that Karina's no longer mute, be Jesus, where are we going to go next?
I'll have to mute him.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to wrap on that note. I don't think you beat that line. Andy and the cliffhangers, another cracker. Fantastic. Well, listen, thanks so much to all of you. It's really a monumental day, really fantastic. And to all our listeners, buy the book quickly before it sells out. You want to get the first print. It's Christmas.
Well,
it's
thank you, Melanie.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations to Karina and Kathy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And to Melanie.
And to Melanie.
Yeah.
All of us.
To all of us. We congratulate each other. Everybody is deserving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Well done.